So, so as I said, the craft of DJing is really trivial. Everybody can do it, and you do it.
Even I can do it.
Everybody can do it. And I mean, he hasn't heard about electronic techno, blah blah.
No.
And you know, everybody understands it instantly, right?
No, I think there's nothing to be understood. That's the advantage.
That it. Exactly right.
Because
it's self-explaining.
Because if you understand something, it becomes Literaturwissenschaft, and that.
Right. And then the drama starts.
So I wanted to ask you. We were talking about Nietzsche, of all people, before he started DJing.
Right.
Do you think? What's your imagination about Nietzsche being here on the stage with us? Do you think he would have joined you?
I'm not sure. You know, well, you know, like some of one thing I'm sure Nietzsche maybe. You know, there's some of my favorite writers that would have hated it. I know. You know, for me the greatest techno writer for me is Thomas Bernhard. But I think he would have hated this. You know, I love Bernhard because like he would like have like one sentence in different variation over like 3 pages, you know, and I love stuff like that. That's like techno, right?
Listen, but we were saying when we went out for dinner together. So I cannot get very excited about Thomas Mann. I mean, like all authors who received the Nobel Award, I think they are B+ authors, right? They're really good, but not excellent. But he likes Thomas Mann.
I love him, right?
So,
and you know why I love him? Because like in techno, you got 2 basic schools. You got the floater and the grower. Now the grower is always like trying to build it into something. You know, he starts with a little bump, something else. It grows and grows more crazy, takes people with them, goes like mental. And that's what I feel about Thomas Mann, especially Tod in Venedig. It's like it goes crazy as you go, you know, it gets more crazy and it goes to the high point.
But this is a really question I want to ask you. So that much of the really great 20th century literature, and I may concede Thomas Mann in certain texts is not so bad, is really about Stimmung. I mean, for example, think about Ulysses, right? I mean, nobody asks himself or herself whether Molly Bloom she's going to betray her husband and she's going to come back that same day and sleep in his bed. I mean, that's not surprising. Nobody reads. Ulysses is about the Stimmung of that day, unfortunately, one day after my birthday, I mean, in 1970 or whatever it was, in Dublin. Or Proust is about Stimmung, or Muse is about Stimmung. Do you think there's an affinity? I mean, this is much about Stimmung, what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, you know, they say, well, I guess to some extent, everything that humans like is about Stimmung, isn't it? It's all about, well, because there's no, you know, people say techno is about machines.
No.
And I say, like, that's crazy, you know, there's no art form. People are only interested in one thing. People are not interested in nature or anything. People are just interested in one thing, other people, you know? So it's all about a connection, and to some extent I'd say, yeah, well, I mean, DJ obviously is just about atmosphere. The art of DJing, to me, you know, like, again, there's 2 schools of DJs. The one is the so-called Durchzieher, who tries to, like, says, I have an agenda, and that's what we're gonna play because I'm a professor of music, and I'm gonna play this because that's the best music, and if you don't like it, you're too silly, you know? Which I think is quite right, and to me that's the primitive idea, you know. And the other idea is you kind of like, you know, what the arts always wanted, like try to get in contact with the people and let them contribute into the music. You know, in the Nullerjahre, we all lost our faith. And with it, we tried to create a music that didn't create any presence, you know? These were the so-called minimal years, you know, when people said, well, in the 90s, we created music with like rave signals that was like creating alarm and creating because it was all about democracy has won and it's going to be this great new future, and then the music always had these kind of da 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 da, and then after the Osama bin Laden thing, techno music did just the opposite. It didn't want to create any more presence. That was music that didn't want to be listened to, or didn't want to be danced to, or didn't want to be played loud. They created a music that was just basically there to say, we don't want to open our mouth and say anything no more.
Everything we call a rhythm is a practical solution to the problem whether a time object in the proper sense can have a form. Now, a time object in the proper sense, to show erudition and wisdom, this was something a concept invented by Edmund Husserl, is any phenomenon that can only exist in its unfolding in time, like music,
right.
like movement, but not like a sculpture. You don't for a sculpture, a sculpture can perfectly exist. Horst Bredekamp would not completely agree with me, but let's say can perfectly, I have to learn too much of you, but anyway, we believe it can perfectly exist without unfolding in time, right? But time objects, so now, what is a form? I scare you again with a definition by somebody who may have heard the name, Niklas Luhmann. A form is the paradoxical unity of self-reference and outside reference. What that means, if you have a circle, the circle always points to itself and to the rest of the world. So it does the two things at the same time. And I think you realize if the circle that you have tries, as my California students like to say, to morph, becomes a quadrangle, and then it becomes a route, and then it becomes hexagonic or God knows what, you wouldn't say it's a form. Yeah? It can either be stable or be a time object and morph. But once it changes its form, it is no longer a form. You get the point? That's the problem. And this is why I believe he's right that, for us, for humans, every basic rhythm is probably based on the heartbeat. Yeah?